Okay, now that we have the crown bottoms made, we're going to make the crown tops. So in this case here, ExoCAD is asking, do we want to copy a tooth? We can copy an adjacent tooth if we wanted to, or mirror. We're going to go ahead and select a library model and hit next. So you may notice here we've got some pretty nice looking teeth. I have True Smile turned on. We can go ahead and turn that off, and this is the default ExoCAD yellow color. I do like the True Smile a lot better. And so in this screen, we're basically placing and scaling the tooth, helping ExoCAD out. You notice we've got a couple of problems. What we want to do is try our best to envelop the margins. Think of these as ion crowns like you had back in dental school. We need to sort of adapt it to the prep. If we click on Show Distances, this little dialog comes up. Show Distances basically is like CIREC. It tells the computer where the teeth are in relation to the opposing tooth and to the adjacent. It comes default with the adjacents turned off. And so if we turn off our jaw scan and look at it from the side, if we turn that on, we can see now how it's touching. And basically we go from 0 to 1, 1 being red and basically crossing over to the adjacent tooth by a whole millimeter, which is really too high. So let's go ahead and move some of these teeth around. So we can just grab a hold of this tooth and move it over and also move it down. We're not going to take it all the way down to the bottom just yet. We're going to have the computer help us with that, but we want to sort of get it in the general position. We can see here this number 30 is really big, so we can move it down, and let's scale that in mesiodistally. So we can just click on mesiodistal and get that to kind of tuck in and move that over. We may also want to scale it buccolingually, so we can hit scale and go buccolingual and make that a little bit smaller. You may notice here that on number 20, we're not enveloping the margins here. Let's leave this alone for now. If we can scale it maybe just a little bit, but we're going to take care of that using the Form tool. So if we click Next, ExoCAD does a pretty good job of adapting the margins to it. And we look pretty good here, but we could improve in a few areas. If we go ahead and turn off the jaw scans, we can look at the interproximal contacts. This looks really heavy. The green means that it's also maybe heavier for my taste, and this looks almost open. So let's turn on the jaw scan. Let's take care of that open contact. And so if we look over here, we can see that it's pretty light. I'm going to go ahead and grab a tooth part and just move that over. And now when I go ahead and take that off, we can see that we maybe want a little bit more oomph to it. And so we'll move that until it's actually overdoing it. We have a tab called Adapt. And so if we click on Adapt, we can do a couple of things. The pontic is really too long, and so we can adapt it to the gingiva if we wanted to. We can make this number positive or negative. If you make it negative, it's actually goes through the model, and I want a little bit of pressure on that. So if we click Adapt to Gingiva, we should see a little bit of it showing through right here. We can kind of see that. We'll put some pressure on the gingiva. Now these adjacent contacts are really too heavy, so let's go ahead and work on those next. And so if we go to a proximal contact, 0 is 0. If we want things to be positive, if we want to put a little pressure on the adjacent teeth, I don't know why, but this number has to be a negative number. Let's make that negative 30 microns. If we have two choices, we can cut the intersection or we can do shape preserving adaptation. Believe it or not, shape preserving doesn't work well, so if we hit that, it sort of opens up contacts and makes things look a little bit weird. Actually, it did a pretty good job this time, but usually it doesn't. So if we undo that, we can actually click on Cut Intersection, and I think that does a little better job. If we go ahead and turn the models off, we can see that we have a little bit of pressure. We have some color on the adjacent teeth, which is what I want with this temporary. If we go ahead and turn back on our jaw scan, let's go ahead and try to work on the occlusion here now on Occlusal. It's up to you if you want things in hyper-occlusion. This number is a negative number. If you want it just at 0, it'll just be at occlusion or slightly out of occlusion. Personally, on these temporaries, I want them a little bit out of occlusion, so I'm going to make this a positive 30 microns. And same deal, we can go to shape preserving adaptation. It works a little better on the occlusal. Or if you don't want to do that, if we just hit cut intersections, it'll cut it, but it's going to make a little dent. And so let's go ahead and go with shape preserving. If we want to bulk an area out, we can now use our Freeform tool and we can add or remove. So we have a bit of a concavity as we approach the margin here and here. And so to add, we simply push the button. If we want to subtract, we hold down the Shift key and that'll take it out. Or smooth will kind of average out the two. So if we come here, I'm going to make my brush size a little bit smaller, and let's up the strength. And so we can build out this area here and build out this area here. We can look at it from the posterior. Notice it's pivoting off of a different area. If I hold down the middle mouse wheel, I'll pivot off that premolar. And let's add a little bit here. And then now we're going to come back and smooth this area out. And so it'll smooth back to the margin. Let's check our contacts again. And it looks like I got a little heavier here, so I'll go to Adapt, Proximal Contacts, and Cut Intersections. All right, so we generally like this. We'll move on to the next step.